Greetings. This is the one you've known as Jesus the Christ. Your breath connects you with the spiritual dimension, the subtle world. The life force or soul comes into the body, and the body breathes, and a life begins. As the life force leaves the body, the breath leaves, and a life ends. Breath is this intimately connected with God, with the force behind all life. God breathes life into creation. When you breathe, it is God breathing, literally. There's no one else here but God, although you pretend to be someone else. If you want to get in touch with God, with the subtle realm in which God resides, with your true nature, then pay attention to your breath. Just stop a moment and notice that God is right here, right now, breathing. God is this close. There's one other thing you can do with your breath to get close to God, and that is to change your breath in one way or another. Make it deeper, slower, or even faster. When you alter your breath in any way, your state of consciousness changes for the better. The default is shallow, unaltered, automatic breathing. When you change how you breathe, your state of consciousness changes. There's only one other state you can be in besides the default state, and that's a more expanded state, your natural state. There are really only two states of consciousness in the waking state: the contracted state of one's default, identification with the ego, or the more or less expanded state, that's your natural state, where you're in touch with your true nature and its qualities, which is to say, the qualities of God: love, peace, wisdom, compassion, strength, and clarity, to name a few. What a marvelous thing this is that you can change your state of consciousness by simply changing how you're breathing in a particular moment. So simple. Such a gift that you're given. But you must make this choice, of course. You must know about this possibility, and then you must be willing to choose it when you're upset, unhappy, or in some other way contracted. Making this choice is not as easy as it sounds, for when you feel upset or contracted, your ego is often invested in continuing to feel this way, even though that state is unpleasant. The ego loves its misery. The truth is, which is easy enough to observe, the ego doesn't really want you to feel good. Feeling good is synonymous with being aligned with your true self and no longer identified with the ego. The ego pretends that it has your best interests at heart, but it's a con man. Fortunately, all you really have to do about a con man is realize it's a con man. We're sometimes criticized for being uncharitable toward the ego, but that's hardly the same as being uncharitable to a person, since the ego is not an entity. It doesn't have feelings, and it's the source of all suffering. So to pretend that the ego needs to be coddled or taken care of is to fall into its hands. We aren't saying you should get upset with the ego or fight with it. That would be the ego getting upset or fighting with itself. But you must recognize the adversary of your happiness and peace for what it is and not go along with it. Yes, we will get in trouble, no doubt, for calling the ego an adversary, but it's best to regard it as such, although it too is a divine creation, and a clever one at that. By their fruits you will know them. The ego's fruits are not good. So even when it pretends to be your friend, it's not. It cons you in so many ways. It's important to see the truth about it. The ego is not your friend. It has nothing of value to offer you. It lies to you continually. It takes on various guises to fool you. What else would you call it but a con man? Fortunately, the ego is only as powerful as you allow it to be. You are the one who decides whether to believe the voice in your head or not, and whether to follow its advice. You may not always be aware enough of this voice to realize that you've been taken in by it, but you can become so aware of it that it no longer affects your perceptions or choices. The capacity to be this aware of the voice in your head develops over time. It takes some time before you catch yourself before you've been taken in by it instead of later, but eventually you'll be able to be this aware. One of the most important things you can do to become more aware of this voice is to meditate. Another thing is to simply make this intention. State your desire to be free from this voice so that both your subconscious mind and non-physical beings know this. And finally, take a deep breath. Yes, just breathe. Breathing, as I said, changes your state of consciousness, and it can do that fairly rapidly without a lot of effort. Stopping whatever you're doing or thinking and taking a few deep, slow breaths will create some space in that moment to choose something other than the default, which might be urging you to push or hurry even more, express your irritation or anger, or fall into despair or negativity. If you stay in the egoic state of consciousness long enough, it will take you down the rabbit hole of negative emotions. That's eventually where the voice in your head leads. It leads to feeling bad in some way. You can avoid this eventual train wreck by jumping off the train before it gets out of control and jumps the tracks. You can do this by just stopping. Stop whatever you're doing and thinking. That's easy enough, but it does take a desire and willingness to do that. Summon that will. Just stop, and the more often you make this choice, the easier it will become. Then stay stopped. Pause for a while. Do nothing but take some deep breaths. Give your full attention to your breath or count your breaths. It's not only the focus of giving your full attention to your breath that changes your state, although that's part of it, but changing the breath itself changes your brain's state. Your consciousness is changed by giving a different order to your brain. When you slow your breath down or breathe more deeply, you're telling your body-mind, all is well, there's no danger here. You can relax now. You have to get the body-mind on board, not just try to talk yourself into a calmer state, which is often the tendency. You have to physically change your body-mind state by changing your breathing. The relaxed state is reflective of your natural state. The fight or flight state and any other state of tension is reflective of the egoic state. You can tell the degree to which you're aligned with the ego or your true self by how relaxed or tense you are. Learn to notice the state of your body, and when you notice it's tense, make a choice to relax your body-mind by stopping a moment and taking some slow, deep breaths. Your body-mind is the vehicle of your soul. It has an instinctual, animal-like aspect to it, which causes it to react in primitive, non-social ways, in ways that damage relationships and cause harm to people and society. humanity is in the process of evolving from behaving more primitively to behaving more rationally. This evolution is imperative now. It must happen more quickly. It's imperative that you overcome your more primitive tendencies. When you're tense, unhappy, negative, or afraid, you're in your lower brain, the less evolved part of your brain. When you're relaxed, you gain access to your higher brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of rationality, compassion, and creative thinking. That's where you want to be all the time, unless your body actually needs to fight or flee for its life, which is so rarely the case in your current lives. Even in traffic or at other times when you feel you might be in danger, your prefrontal cortex will serve you much better than your more primitive brain. Isn't it wonderful that you've been given such a handy means as changing your breathing for switching off your primitive brain and activating your best self? Now that you know this about your brain, your evolution can speed along more quickly. When you were ignorant of this, you were at the mercy of the more primitive side of yourself, but no longer. There's no excuse to not notice what's going on within your body-mind and make another choice. Please do that more consciously now, and please utilize this wonderful tool, the breath, to help you shift your consciousness whenever you need to. Only you can choose to do this. We will help remind you intuitively if you ask us, but ultimately you have to choose against the default. That choosing becomes easier with every choice. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your willingness to grow and change and learn new things. We are with you always.